AskReddit by Amgen4x. Has anyone ever tried to kill you? How'd it go? Happened when I was a kid. Two boys in the neighborhood wonder what would happen if they hung someone and they chose me to hang. I am fuzzy on the details other than I was swinging when my dad saw what was happening and cut me down. I only remember being lifted off the ground and then in my dad's arms. Did your dad proceed to kick the life out of the two boys, or was he rightfully preoccupied with your well-being? Did the other boys face any consequences? Yes. Best friend from childhood tried to kill me by shooting me 3x point blank with a .45, through the neck, out my back, in my gut and left hip. This all was BC. He relapsed after 4 years of sobriety due to his relationship ending, couldn't handle his emotions and got aggressive toward me and my friends on my property who were just visiting for my birthday, flatlined 2 times in operation, lots of blood transfusions, stomach surgery and a destroyed C6. Bullet bruised my left jugular vein. I got super lucky. Lots of surgery to come, and healing in all types of ways. He faces 2nd-degree felony, but the lovely state of Co allows him to be on bond till final hearing, so we have a man in our streets who tried to murder someone. Happy birthday. He could have just gotten you a card. Kid came to school with a gun in his backpack and a list of names. Kid was one of my friends, not super close friend, but my name was first on the list. He was caught roaming the school looking for me. I had been taken out of school a few days early for the holiday to visit my grandparents and hadn't told my friends. As far as I know, it was swept under the rug. Never saw the kid again, only heard about it from my mother and then later a school counselor I was required to talk to for a while. Never found any news story and reports about it either. This was early 90s. WTF. The hell did you do to deserve being in one? I was stabbed by an idiot when I refused to give him my wallet. Still here. If someone stole my wallet, they'd get $5 and a bunch of useless cards as I deactivate them quickly. Yes, a serial killer by the name of Dale Hausner. I was out walking at night when he pulled up on me. I ran into an orange grove before he was able to shoot, and that night he killed a young woman walking to the apartment complex that I lived in. It still doesn't seem real to me, and it could have been me instead of her, and in a way regret that it wasn't me. She was also the last of his victims. Holy fucking shit. I just read him and his partner's Wikipedia. That's fucking nuts. You dying might not have necessarily saved that other girl though, and even if it could have, that's not your fault. I was the victim of a drive-by shooting. I got hit in my right hand, and in my back. The bullet that hit my back clipped the left side of my spinal cord. I am now a quadriplegic. Life isn't too bad though. I'm currently in college, receiving SDI and Medicare. I live in California, so weed is legal and my fam doesn't do too bad of a job caring for me. It could be worse. Edit. Thank you for the positive reinforcement. It is much appreciated. Keep it up, homie. When I was like 15, a friend loaded a gun and pointed it at me. I talked him down. 10 years later he shoots his roommate in the head. Some friend pointed a revolver at my head and pulled the trigger. It was empty, thank fucking god, but I was just stunned at first and then livid. I cussed him out and left the party, because fuck that shit. Every gun is loaded. I don't fucking care how many times you check it. If you point and pull, you had better expect to kill what you point at. And take the consequences. My older sister was a drug addict and generally nuts in the worst way. When I was maybe 8 or 9, I was in the car with her when she started to have a freak out. She became suicidal, saying she would just kill us both, and swerved into oncoming traffic. The other cars managed to avoid us until she hit the median, and then the cops came out. She managed to lie her way out of any medical intervention, said she had lost control of the car, and we went on our merry way with a tow truck. Later, she said if I ever told anyone, she'd kill me for real. I never did tell until I was an adult in therapy. I am so glad you're okay. That sounds absolutely awful. I hope you are in a safe place now to work through those emotions. Yeah, my grandpa tried to run me over few times. I told that to my mom and she told me how he did the same thing to her. He died last year. No one misses this shithead. Edit. Some people ask me why, and the reason is that my mom and I were not born with penis. Edit 2. Not just because of grandpa, I suffer from severe CPTSD and depression. My family normalized abuse, so seeing so many upvotes and comments mentioning how abusive they were to me, confirmation like that from this many people says a lot to me. Thank you. Just casually trying to run you over a few times. What goes on in some people's heads? I have two. The first time, in primary school, a friend and I were watching a movie when his older special needs brother decided that I had laughed at him, and he tried to choke me to death. Just as I was blacking out, I flailed a kick in his groin and he flinched enough that I got free. Then his mom stepped in. The second time, a girlfriend tried to cook me to death in a car while I was asleep. She confessed to it later when she was drunk. She failed. Cook you? Oh, I so hope it's a figure of speech for locking you in a car when it's hot outside. I've been shot at. I wasn't the target, but I was downrange. It was scary, but I was fine. 15 minutes later, they were driving away fast. I didn't expect that to return. I also got stabbed. I was able to block it with my elbow and grab his arm and control it. He was like a 20-year-old addict. I'm a 36-year-old construction worker. He panicked and ran off. I had to spend 4 days in a hospital getting IV medicine to combat the infection. I'm fine now. This happened 3 months ago and it still hurts, but I'm fine. Had someone cut my brake lines. Felt a pedal go to the floor when I put it in drive. Crimped it and wasn't even late for work. Lol. Who do you suspect did it? My mum pushed me down the stairs when I was 8. She also left me in a wave pool when I was 3 and couldn't swim. She's a psychopath. My mom did that to me at the beach. A woman rescued me and I distinctly remember my mom being nonchalant, almost annoyed when the lady brought me to her. I'll never forget the look on the lady's face as she walked away. 1978 or so. Swimming in shallow area of a very large, football field sized, community pool. I was about 6 years old at the time. My sister's friend asked me if I wanted to learn how to go underwater. I said yes. She told me to take a deep breath and then shoved me underwater and sat on me, wrapping her legs around me. I could not get away. Somehow my mother, who was sitting on the surrounding grass half paying attention, figured out what was happening. She charged over and threw the girl off me. Not sure what would have happened had she not come for me. Thanks, Mom. Fuck you, Meredith. Fuck you, Meredith. My boyfriend at the time tried to strangle me. I don't know what stopped him, but that night I fled and went into hiding. I got a restraining order and never saw him again. I hope he is dead or soon. Got jumped by 2 drunk dudes when I was walking. I fought like a badger, and they took off, but when it was all said and done, I was worse for the wear. 6 stab wounds, 4 broken ribs, 2 missing molars, 3 broken knuckles, a cracked orbital socket, and a broken nose. Healed up as well as I could, but now I absolutely have a zero tolerance policy for anyone wanting to fuck around. The list of injuries sounds like the 12 Days of Christmas song, the 12 Wounds of Christmas. My biological father. He shoved a metal yogurt lid down my throat when I was a toddler. Untreated mental illness is no joke. He was a violent, delusional alcoholic. That's horrifying. I am glad you're okay. Yes. Active duty here. One deployment out to sea. A disgruntled sailor I worked with was being sent to mast because I reported them for a tag-out violation. He was going to lose everything. It was his 4th time going up. One night while down and steering, I hear a thump from above. He took 4 CO2 bottles, a homemade Molotov and some gunpowder. He snuck on board and essentially tried to throw a bomb into the space I was doing maintenance in, aft steering. I was hurt pretty badly. Luckily someone was doing laundry around the same way and saw him. Able to identify him based on his shoes he wore. They do a birthing check, discover he tried covering them in sharply inked paint. He was arrested and court-martialed at the next port after being contained. My ex-stepfather tried to choke me to death when I was like 12. I was terrified and also at peace at the same time. The only reason he stopped is my baby brother started crying and he realized if I was dead he'd have to be the one to take care of his son. Either that or he realized he wouldn't be able to see his son if he was in jail for murder. But joke's on him. He's in jail now and his son doesn't talk to him. I'd say it went in my favor considering I'm still alive. I'll say though, it definitely caused a lot of trauma lol. I'm so sorry. That is an awful thing to have had to survive. I hope you're working through the trauma and you and your brother are pulling through. Hugs, of the sort you're okay with it, from an internet stranger. My ex tried to strangle me to death. When I started to lose consciousness, I had a burst of adrenaline, got my right arm free, and slammed my fist into his temple as hard as I could. It stunned him long enough for me to be able to push him off of me, jump up and grab my bag with my keys, get out of the house and into my car and leave. Hardcore. I'm glad you made it out of that and hope you're doing wonderfully now. I was about 14 years old out with some friends and we got invited to a friend's house where her parents were throwing a party. One of her mom's friends pressured me into eating 5 codeine pills saying it would help me open up because I was too shy. I pretended to eat them then went home. They called me a bummer or something. I ate them before I went to sleep out of curiosity and woke up in the hospital a couple days later. My lips went blue and I stopped breathing. No one would say who that person was and I never saw them again. What a fucked up thing to do to a 14-year-old. My mum when I was a teenager bullied me into taking a bunch of pills that were supposedly prescription painkillers but I'm not sure. Within about 10 minutes my vision started spinning and my body was extremely hot, then feeling like I was going to vomit. It was night in the middle of winter and I ended up stripping down to shorts and a thin tank top and sitting outside trying to cool off while she ignored me. My dad got home from work, asked me what was wrong and all I said was mum gave me some pills which had him immediately freak out. He was running around, making me drink a lot of water, yelling at her. At the time I just thought she was an idiot, but I realized later from my dad's reaction she must have talked about it to him before because he knew exactly what had happened without me even telling him how many or what she'd given me. Similar thing happened to me when I was 9 but I had mental health issues and had agreed to commit suicide, and was forced to go through with it after I changed my mind. Oh and BTW when I was sorting some files for my dad 10 years later I found a document revealing that a hefty life insurance policy was taken out for me the year before this. My ex-husband did meth and was abusive. The day I last saw him was the day I gave him an ultimatum. Either quit meth or leave. He didn't want either so he got a machete and told me he was going to kill me. What he didn't know is that I called the police and they came in with him next to me with the machete. It wasn't until later I understood how that could be my last day on earth because when DV victims try to leave, that's when they usually end up dead. That was in 2017. That's terrifying. I'm glad you're okay. Smart of you to have called the police beforehand. I hope the years since have been kind to you. Yes. I was strangled by a serial killer but survived. He went to jail. It happened in 1982 in Boulder, Colorado. How did you survive? Glad you're okay. Ex-wife poisoned me during a multi-year divorce. Judge made note of it in the final judgment but no criminal charges. She didn't do so well with the splitting of custody and property however, judge didn't like her gaming the system. How did she not get criminal charges? Dude picked me up by the neck and said he was going to throw me off the 6th floor balcony we were standing on. His friends convinced him that going to jail for murdering your drug dealer would be a shitty way to spend spring break. So, fine. It went fine. Why did he do that? Did you give him bad product or try to rip him off? I got jumped by a nation gang because I was wearing the wrong color. They could have shot me but didn't. Sucks for colorblind people. In 8th grade, we were on a school trip, and this one usual bully, who had failed a couple of classes and hence was bigger, was being annoying, so we complained to the teacher. He got to know that I did it. The next day when we were in this very shallow river, he pushed my head into the water. I obviously couldn't breathe, but somehow managed to get my face out and he did that again. And then continued doing it like 10 times. After that he let me go off with a warning that this time I'm letting you live, but won't spare you the next time. I was scared because his uncle was also a local gangster. Then in grade 10th his mom committed suicide. After a couple more years in uni he got beaten up so badly by a group that his arm was broken. I met a different friend who met him, and I got to know he has changed. Like he apologized to this common friend for stealing his food. He is now married and now has a young daughter. I'm glad he has changed. After several hours of drinking in a club watching some USA 94 World Cup matches, a dickhead in the car park started beating his girlfriend in his car. I helped pull her out and he tried to drive away. Car park was jammed. I got a brick through his window and he tried but failed to run me over. He eventually got penned in and I got him out of the car. We kicked 7 shades of shite out of him. I didn't see what happened to him. Did you see what happened to him? Nope. I didn't see anything either, officer. He was just rolling around on the ground when I walked up. Back in grade school, we would hang out at the public swimming pool. Along comes a fat bully who would grab a kid and dunk them under the water after he had dunked me several times in a row. I decided the next time I'll take care of him, and he did. As I was under the surface I grabbed his leg and bit down as hard as I could. I could taste the blood. He tried to pull me off but I hung on and kept my teeth into his leg. Finally I ran out of breath and released my bite. As I came to the surface he was hauling ass away as fast as he could. The other kids were all gawking. That fat kid never dunked another victim that summer. Do you still have a taste for blood? I was almost abducted when I was 12. I laid in a ditch while the guy stood at the edge, shining his flashlight into the woods on the other side of the ditch. I could see the beam of light above me. Thank God he never looked down. Whoa. Need a full story. Twice actually. When I was 2, my 12-year-old cousin grabbed my hand at a family picnic, took me up to the above ground 4-foot pool and pushed me in while laughing hysterically. Thank goodness someone saw it happen and jumped in and got me out in time. That kid was evil and it's no surprise that he is in prison for shooting and attempting to murder his girlfriend. The other time was my 6'4" football player ex. He was an amazing boyfriend before this. It came out of nowhere. While I was at work and he was at my house, he found my old high school diary and read it. I guess my high school dating details infuriated him. When I walked in from work he took my car keys and phone and wouldn't give them back. Then he slammed me up against the wall and grabbed my throat with both hands and started to choke me. He had me completely lifted up off the ground against the wall and I couldn't breathe. Though. He tried to strangle me when I threatened to reveal he was cheating. I was able to overpower him and throw him off of me. Haven't spoke much to my father since then. I had an extremely abusive ex a few years back. It got so bad that in order to control me he would put knives to my throat. One day I'd had enough. He pinned me against a wall and held the knife to my throat and I grabbed his hand to press it in harder, looked him dead in the eye and said do it. He then stood back, looked shocked and then went into a fake meltdown about how I scared him and he couldn't do it anymore. I knew he was mentally ill and him treating me that way wasn't his fault. The next day he broke up with me and I got my freedom. Almost 6 years later and that was still the best decision I made. Got in a fight at a party in high school at 16. Shouldn't have been there, but was young and 24-year-old crazy guy was there and got the idea in his head that I stole some of his money. He was waving around like 5k in bills and apparently lost some. He accused me of taking and I mouthed off. Next thing I know I'm being woken up on the floor. He had knocked me out but continued beating me, fracturing my orbital. Thankfully others there pulled him off. Buddy took me home, then parents to ER. Explaining that wasn't fun. I also should have died a couple of times in Iraq. I wasn't combat arms but transported tanks and their crews, 88M, and we rolled through a few ambushes on the road that I have no idea how I survived. Drove through a wall of tracers and we somehow didn't take a hit. Not to mention the numerous IEDs and nightly mortars rockets at various camps and FOBs across the country. I got lucky, but unfortunately others did not. I was about 10 years when me and the kid who was bullying me were about to fight. He pulled up with his friends, they circled us and we start fighting. I was getting my ass until I hit him in his throat. At the moment the fight turned in my favor and I start whopping this kid's ass. Then, unaware at the time, one of his friends hit me with a lead pipe on the head from the construction site across the street. I lay there on this dirt road melting in the August heat. And through my dazed eyes I can see everyone scatter like roaches. I rolled from stomach to my back and was looking at the sky. When I see the dude I was fighting came back and stomped my face and ran off. I remember laying crying and being so much pain. I passed out. I awoke to my big brother carrying me into the hospital. I had to get 10 stitches for the lead pipe hit on my head. Everything else recovered with time. Anything happened to those kids? Well, it did not work, because I am still here, but when I was 5 months old, the woman who had given birth to me threw me a burning barrel, a trash can before there was paid for trash pickup, and left me there in the middle of a northern Minnesota winter. According to the woman who found me, I was out there for about 3 days. What kept me alive was the heat from the rotting garbage around me. I had a wonderful childhood. Can we get a full story of your life next? On a winding country road in Kentucky, a very large, old car was driving the opposite way. They waited until the last split second and very intentionally swerved at me. I somehow reacted with lightning speed and drove down into the ditch to the right. It happened so fast. That was about 10 years ago and I still think about how unlikely it was that I avoided a really bad wreck. I had a very similar thing happen to me in Texas. It was 2 AM and something felt strange about the car coming in my direction. They swerved into my lane last second and I went right off the road. No ditch, so I called the police and kept driving, making sure they didn't come back. That experience shook me. My husband would get drunk and beat the shit out of me. This includes, but not limited to, grabbing my hair and slamming my face into the car dashboard repeatedly, punching me, kicking me, choking me to the point of passing out, throwing me into walls or on the floor, trying to suffocate me with a pillow, grabbing the wheel while I'm driving, and chasing me out of the house with a meat tenderizer. He claims he was never trying to kill me, but he also claims he doesn't remember most of these events. Trying to kill me or not, it's amazing I'm not dead. Physically I am fine with no permanent damage. Psychologically, I've been better. My ex from when I was 18. I got kicked out of my mom's house after graduation because I couldn't find a job immediately and she wanted rent. So the only place I had to go was my very new boyfriend's grandparents' house where he was currently living. I found out very quickly he was a bad dude. He stole my money every week and gave me $20 for food allowance weekly, and I have celiac. It's not easy to only eat so little for so long. I lost 20 pounds, was down to 80 pounds and so sick. After almost 2 years of secretly saving a few bucks here and there and making a friend at work who was willing to help me get out, I finally left him as he was sleeping at 2 in the morning. He ended up stalking me for months. Broke into my new place once when I was at work and jerked off on my pillows, desecrated almost everything in my house, all while my dog was going off in his crate, trying to get at him. Nah, but cancer didn't I fucking nuked it, Mayo. My parents, when I came out, they locked me in my room for 2 days with no food or water, forgetting that I'm diabetic and I would have died if my brother hadn't sneaked in to give me food. Broken bones, severe concussion, rape, left to die in an alleyway. Luckily my guy friend felt something was off with me not responding to text. I normally respond immediately, so he located me and nursed me back to health. My parents ran a hostel that housed pregnant women who had to come to our small town to deliver their babies. I was a 3-year-old red-headed girl and tragically, a woman had given birth to a stillborn that was a ginger. She had gone into postpartum psychosis and she believed that I was her child, and I had come back to life to torture her, and she told the other women that she was going to kill me. Luckily they told my mom, and when she was talking with them in the front of the house, my dad just happened to be at the back door, near my room where I was playing, and he stopped the woman from entering our living quarters. A fight ensued, and my dad was cut from the huge butcher knife that she brought to kill me. But I didn't even know what happened until I was in my early 20s and they told me that the woman who tried to kill me had died, as they had been keeping tabs on her that. I was driving just north of Indianapolis years ago. I changed lanes and despite being well ahead of the guy behind me, he'd felt I cut him off. So he rushed up beside me and flipped me off. So I blew him a kiss. He then pulled out a gun and just before he fired it in my direction, he realized the car in front of him had slowed considerably and he had to hit his brakes or hit it. He then got behind me and fired once in my direction, but didn't hit my car. So I brake checked him. The roads were slightly icy and he slipped and slid around a bit, then went into the ditch. He shot at you and you brake checked him. Mayo rock on. My identical twin hogged all the nutrients while we were in utero. TTTS, but I live to post about it on Reddit. Haha, who's laughing now? In utero I was the one that hogged all the nutrients from my twin. I'll never forgive myself. Someone fired a rocket at my general position, the combative type, not the fun firework type. The A-10 pilot coming in for a landing didn't find it amusing, and proceeded to introduce the culprit to high-velocity projectiles. Edit for clarity, I fix airplanes. I was on the ground in a not so fun region, and a guy started launching rockets at the base from a nearby hillside. The A-10 I mentioned was coming in for a landing, saw a rocket come up out of the hills, and so he decided to abort the landing and go investigate. And yes, we all heard the A-10's trademark BRRRRT about a minute later. Reintroduce their atoms to the environment. Yes, my ex strangled me but was unsuccessful in killing me. Still here. Got jumped and choked on the bathroom floor when I was 13/14 in a ballet studio. I came to and was like, well, I'm alive and no one seems to be worried, so I didn't tell anybody for like 5 years. Had a friend who got a little too high and drunk and pointed his brother's shotgun to my chest and told me he should pull the trigger. I don't know how I was able to remain calm, but I told him to get the gun off of me and I left immediately.